In the United States, the number of farmers fell from 30 million to less than 3 million between 1950 and 1980. The reasons are many. The allure of the city, the bone-numbing and exhausting work in an ever-changing and challenging landscape, crop failures, weather conditions, poor market prices, and a lack of access to farm workers. Well, today we may be witness to a small, and some may say microscopic, reversal of that trend. A trend that in part is motivated by dedicated farmers like the Truer family. Take a look at this video. It demonstrates the joy and pride of farming on full display at Creekside Dairy, an organic farm in the eastern Fraser Valley. This video from their website is called Moo, Let the Cows Out. While it appears idyllic, it is only so because the Truers make farming look easy. That in itself is difficult to do. Central to their success is the passion they have for their work, their animals, and their place in Canada's food supply system. A system that is under intense scrutiny. According to the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity, as of last year, only 1 in 3 Canadians believe our food system is headed in the right direction. The top issues of concern are a rise in the cost of food, especially healthy food, that coupled with rising healthcare costs, rising energy costs, and the safety of imported foods. Then add in climate change, the treatment of animals, and concerns about an ample supply of food. We invited Julaine Treur of Creekside Dairy to join us for a conversation that matters about her and her family's approach to farming and why she believes that Canada has an exceptional food security and supply system.
Conversations That Matter is a partner program of the Centre for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the following and viewers like you. Please become a patron at conversationsthatmatter.tv.
Julaine Treur, welcome. You are in the farming business. You are a cattle farmer. You and your husband established your dairy farm in the eastern Fraser Valley. What is it about farming that attracted you to this industry?
So for us, farming is really in our blood. My husband is a 6th generation dairy farmer, actually. And so he grew up dairy farming. His grandparents and great-grandparents grew up dairy farming, and it's just something that he's always wanted to do. And for myself, dairy farming is also my background. My grandparents on my mom's side were dairy farmers, and I've always loved being outdoors, working with animals. And when we got married and we had our first child, then I decided to stay home on the farm, and we've never looked back. We love working together, and I think we make a great team.
It's hard work, isn't it?
Oh, it's hard work and it's long hours, but it's very, very rewarding work.
How so? What makes farming rewarding for you? And I ask this because, well, I bring it up because in the course of the development of our society in North America, more and more people have moved away from farming. Yet you say, oh, no, farm living is the life for me. How come?
There's a few aspects that I find very rewarding about farming. It's really wonderful working with animals. We have a real strong connection with our animals and we feel a lot of affection for them. Another aspect that I find very rewarding is the knowledge that we're feeding our fellow citizens. We sell milk from our farm to the processing plant, but we also sell beef as well. And having that connection with the consumer, knowing that we are providing their family with food, that's something that's very heartwarming and fulfilling for me.
So there are a tremendous number of issues these days that come up about ethical farming. I know that this is an important issue for you. So how do you define what ethical farming is?
I'd say ethical farming is farming that meets the animal's needs in a compassionate way. So we believe that we should treat animals well. If we're going to use them for food, they need to be treated well. And I think that's what our whole our ethos of farming actually is.
How do you treat an animal well? And I ask that as someone who does not live my life on a farm, and I hardly ever visit farms. And I'm like so many where there is this separation between a city-urban life and a rural farming life. I don't know what it means to treat an animal ethically. What does that look like?
Well, we need to make sure their every need is met. So we need to make sure that they have clean water, lots of properly nutritionist formulated food, that they have shelter from the elements, that they have a comfortable place to live, and that we treat them with respect and affection. We love to pet our cows. They're special animals, and we like to pet with, or to show affection to them.
Does it matter that you demonstrate that kind of affection to your cows?
How do you mean?
Well, I've heard that cows that are treated well produce more milk. The meat that is produced from them, that it matters how they were treated. There is an impact.
There's the saying that a happy animal is a productive animal. So that's an animal that is well cared for and happy in their environment will be a more productive, healthier animal. There we go. Yes. And actually our butcher agrees too. So when we send our animals in for slaughter, he exclaims over and over again, he says, this meat is such excellent quality. You guys are treating your animals well, you're feeding them well, and your animals obviously have a very good life on your farm.
There are a lot of people these days who say, well, that's nice that you treat your animals well, but how do I know? How can you demonstrate to me that you actually are living up to those standards? What is it that you had to do to say, here's the proof?
Well, I think it's kind of threefold. So I've opened our farm figuratively to the public I share a lot about our farm on social media. So I share anything that's happening on the farm. Just recently I shared the first day our cows went out to pasture for the spring, which is always a huge hit.
What did you call that video again?
Moo let the cows out.
Moo let the cows out.
Yes.
Quite a bit of fun.
Yes, and we also, during non-COVID-19 times, open our farm for tours. So last year, when our cows went out to pasture for the first time, we invited the public out to that, and about 250 people from the surrounding area came and they joined us in the fun and watching our cows have their fun out in the pasture. And then the third way that we show or demonstrate how we care for animals is we've gone ahead and gotten SPCA certification for our farms. So that means that we get inspected by the SPCA and they have...
Well, let me ask you, what does the SPCA look for so that they are comfortable saying, yes, we will give you that certification?
So the SPCA looks at your animal housing, so to make sure that your animals have enough room to move around. They look at your animal feed to make sure that you're feeding your animal a proper diet. They stress the importance of having animals on pasture. They say that's good for their welfare and their fitness as well. They talk a lot about how we deal with animals in a low stress way, so we move them gently and calmly so that the animals are not in stress in any way when we're working with them. There's even things in the standards like they recommend that you have cow brushes installed on your farm so your cows can get massages from the cow brushes. So it's really varied. The standards are quite similar to the organic standards.
But you also went that one step further and you became organic certified.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are the elements of that designation? What do you have to do to ensure that you could, receive that organic certification?
So we've always farmed very similar to how we have now. So we've always had our cows out on pasture. Our cows have always had quite a low grain ration. We've had very low stocking density in our barns. And our feed nutritionist actually is also an organic dairy farmer. And about 9 years ago or so, he recommended that we look into organic certification as well, as he said that we do so many of the things the organic way already that it would make sense for us to consider the transition to organic.
So what did you have to do? Because isn't there a transition period with the land, first of all, and also then with the cows themselves?
Yes, there's a 3-year transition to organic. So the first 3 years that you're wanting to become organic, you have to transition your land. So that means not using any chemical fertilizers or any pesticides on your land. And then during the last year, you also transition your herd, and that means that they will have to have organic feed during that year as well.
How do you source that organic feed?
So we grow most of it on farm, and for our grain, we source it from a mill in Abbotsford, and they get it from all across Canada, from various organic farms across Canada.
Wow. So there's all these steps that you have to take. And somebody's talking to us saying, we appreciate the fact that you go organic. That adds costs to farming.
Yes, it does.
So then how do you offset those costs so that you can ensure that you can continue to function and operate in this manner?
Yeah, farming organically is more expensive, especially from the feed aspect, because we have to purchase organic feed, which is about 75% to double the cost of conventional feed. So through the Milk Marketing Board, we are paid an extra 30 cents per liter for our milk to help offset that cost.
Is it enough?
It's okay. It's definitely not riches, but we make it work.
So how many cows do you have?
We're milking 127 right now. And then, yes, and then with all the younger animals, like the barn we're in right now, we have about 220 animals altogether.
220. That's a good number. Do you plan to grow the size of your herd?
No, we're pretty much maxed out space-wise right now, so we plan to stay around this size.
So that means you are not a hobby farmer.
No.
You're in the business of farming, but you're not a big farm. What are the benefits and what are some of the drawbacks to being the size that you are?
So we're just a little bit above average size for a BC dairy farm. I think the average is right around 110, so we're a little bit bigger than that, but we're definitely very much a family farm. So it's our family, that my husband and myself, that take care of most of the farm work. We have 2 part-time employees. So there's benefits to that. So we get to oversee all aspects of the farm, and then we know exactly what's going on at any given time, but it's very it can be restrictive in a way too, because we're very tied down. So things like family holidays or even getting away for a Saturday afternoon with our 5 kids can be challenging.
Right. Exactly. You've got your friends around you right now, and they clearly appreciate the way you're caring for them and working with them. Now, as we move forward and need to ensure that we can trust the supply and quality of our food, we're hearing more and more from people that they don't trust the system any longer. Does that cause you some concern that people have a misunderstanding about the way in which dairy farming is carried out, especially on a farm like yours?
I think because people are so removed from the farm, many of them don't even know a farmer, that does lead to opportunities for where there could be misunderstandings about farming. And that's why I've really tried to reach out to the public to share what we do on the farm so that I can show that farmers really do have their animals' best interests in mind.
What is the number one concern that you have expressed in your blog, which is called?
In Utter News.
In Utter News. What is the number one concern that you have about the way in which farming is perceived?
I think people are most excited to hear that farmers are really dedicated to their animals and that we enjoy spending our time with them. I think once people really hear that and they understand that, it allays a lot of their fears and concerns about farming.
You've also expressed that you have some concern about the fact that people don't know what the food process is, where the development goes from concept to ideas to animals, the whole process, and that misunderstanding creates creates misconceptions. So what are some of your concerns about the way in which some people respond to you, despite the way in which you carry out ethical farming, and that they may start to put pressure on decision makers who in turn can create rules and regulations that affect you as a farmer?
Can you repeat it shorter? I kind of lost my train of where I was going to go with that.
For sure, I'll restate it. There are those that have an idea about the way they think farming should be practiced. Many of those people do not have a direct relationship with the earth and animals the way that you do. And many have ideas that become popular, and that popularity influences politicians and regulators who may have little direct experience on the farms as well. These are, however, the people who make regulations and laws. And those policies and laws will impact the way you farm. Does that cause you concern?
I wouldn't say it's concerning. I think it's another opportunity to form other relationships. So we've actually had our MLA and our MP out to our farm. They know what we're all about here. And we've shared our concerns with them about animal rights activism in the area that we farm in. And they know that we are working hard to provide food for the public, and we have their support.
As we record this conversation, we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. How has the coronavirus crisis impacted you?
To be honest, it hasn't really impacted us here on the farm. The organic milk supply has been quite stable throughout all of this, with a slight surge in demand. And our beef sales have actually grown because people are looking for, one, local meat, and they're not finding a lot of meat in the grocery store due to plant closures due to COVID-19 as well.
That's a very interesting point. Farms of your size in the past may have seemed to be a little too small, that you might have been better off to have been a larger farm. But then we take a look at what happened in Alberta. So what does this say about the need to preserve your type of farm?
I think there will always be a place for family farms. Having smaller farms, family farms, is good for the community health as well. We live and we work in our community, we shop in our communities, and having all of these family farms within the rural communities is good for the health of the rural fabric of Canada.
So you've been able to remain open to sell dairy and meat to your customers. That's been important to the community, has it not?
Yes, very much so. People are very grateful that we are still able to be open, and we do our sanitizing in between customers, and we keep our distance, and they pick up their meat, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Future generation, though. Is this what you want for your children?
If our kids want to farm, we'd love to see them take over the family farm someday. And we're trying to work towards that. We're actually going to be starting up a small cheese processing plant here on the farm, just to provide more opportunity for our kids as they get older, if they want to branch into the cheese making, or if they would like to stay within the animal care aspect, the farming side. It provides more options as we go forward.
If someone says to you, Julaine, this all sounds a little too good to be true, but, okay, you've convinced me. I think I want to follow in your footsteps and become a farmer just like you. What's your advice to them? What do they need to know? What will be one of the biggest jolts to their way of being?
Be ready for hard work and a huge time and responsibility commitment, but also be prepared for huge rewards. The satisfaction of caring for animals that love you is huge, and I find that pays back in spades, and it never feels like you're going to work when it's a job you love, so it doesn't really feel like you're tied down when you've got these noisy girls to care for.
Well, they do provide you with a considerable amount of companionship and entertainment.
Absolutely.
But they also play a very vital role in Canada's food supply. You work in farming, which is key to the supply of food in Canada. To that point, how are we doing? Does the system work? Can we rely on it?
I think we're really privileged in Canada to have a very stable and strong food supply system. Within dairy specifically, we've got some of the best and highest standards for milk quality, food safety, animal welfare, biosecurity in the world. And I think consumers and farmers can all be thankful that we have the stability of the supply managed system that has allowed us to invest in these measures throughout the generations, actually, so that we've been able to provide top quality, ethically produced dairy for Canadians.
That's reassuring, and it's a point that is vitally important to all of us who consume that food. We want to know that when we are buying products that, one, we can trust that they are quality nutrition, and two, that the animals in the farming environment were treated to the highest possible standard.
Absolutely.
Thank you ever so much for joining me on this episode of Conversations That Matter. And this is the first of a year-long series I will be doing about Canada's food supply.
All right, thanks for having me.
Now, just before I go, if viewers want to find your blog, how do they find it? What's the web address?
So if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you can find us as Creekside Dairy. And if the blogging world is more your thing, then our blog is called inuddernews.com, all one word.
Spell it, please, just so that people know, and we'll put it on the screen right there.
All right, it's INUDDERNEWS.
Very clever. How often do you publish?
I try to at least post once a week on Facebook and Instagram, and if it's a longer post, then I'll usually double post it on the blog as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.